Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Number to call if you want to weigh in on what we've been chatting about today, this Libya mix-up, the campaign, the debates. 888-589-8840 is the number to call, 888-589-8840. And we would love to hear from anybody out there that's been contacted by a pollster. I'm trying to think how many times in my life I have been contacted by a pollster, and it's I don't even know if I ever have. I mean, once or twice I've gotten a phone call that could be from a pollster, but that was decades ago. Rob says I'm probably on a blacklist somewhere. Oh, Jeff, by the way, Jeff, are you there? Jeff, I want you to come on. This is Jeff Reed, my producer, and I really want to take credit for this, but I can't because Jeff's here. He'll bust me, and I'll see him, and I'll feel guilty if I say it and take credit for it. But, Jeff, you made a great observation. There was this guy yesterday that jumped from 124,000 feet up and kind of did the free fall, broke the sound barrier, and lived to tell about it. And I guess he was sponsored by Red Bull, was his sponsor and all that. And Jeff watched the whole thing kind of live, which was, I think would be a pretty gripping thing to watch. But Jeff, you made an interesting observation to me about. Do you remember? You know what I'm talking about?
I was watching it live, and it was that when he stepped out of the capsule to actually take the dive, it was that awkward moment of realizing that Red Bull had a better space program than our nation did.
So Red Bull under President Obama, now Red Bull has a better space program than NASA does. John Glenn came out today and endorsed Barack Obama. There's no NASA program. There's no missile program. As Jeff Reed pointed out, Red Bull now has a better space program than the Obama administration, than the American government under Barack Obama.
Yeah, the private sector's better.
Yeah, private sector's better. There you go. Leave it to Red Bull. All right, let's play a couple of more sound bites on the Libya thing before we shift gears a little bit. 888-589-8840. Here is a Mrs. Newland. She is a representative of the State Department, and here's what she had to say under questioning yesterday about what was going on over there in Libya. Let's listen.
So, if there was, and yet Undersecretary Kennedy said that in his conversations with people on the Hill the next day, or the next day, or the 12th or the 13th, that his personal opinion was that it was, a premeditated or it was a coordinated terrorist attack. And I guess I'm just, does the State Department defer to DNI if DNI comes out and tells you that something that is demonstrably at odds with what witnesses on the ground had to say about it?
Look, I'm not going to parse this 17 ways from this podium. What I am going to say is, obviously, when one goes out and tries to represent what the totality of what we know, the intelligence community plays a large role in that, and they had given an assessment to the entire government, which was the basis on which Ambassador Rice spoke on Sunday. They themselves have talked very explicitly about how their assessment has evolved over time.
Right, and yet Undersecretary Kennedy and other people in this building knew or felt, in their own opinion, that was not correct.
I'm not going to get into the personal feelings of anybody. I'm simply going to say that in making public statements, one depends on the totality of what the administration knows.
But you didn't. You never said that.
Look, I'm generally dumber than most of the rest of the government. I mean, that's what I'm paid to be.
So Mrs. Newland says, I am paid to be dumber than the rest of the government. Not exactly a laughing matter. Now, here's Bob Woodward. This guy's a card-carrying winger left. He's the guy that broke the Watergate scandal and brought Richard Nixon down. And this Benghazi-gate, I mean, it makes Watergate look like somebody, pilfering a bit of honey from a drugstore is what it makes Watergate look like. And, he is critical here of the Obama administration for the way they've handled this, and I think it's a point of criticism. And coming from Bob Woodward, I mean, you might expect this from somebody on the political right, but this is from Bob Woodward, hardcore leftist, talking to Chris Wallace, Fox News. Let's listen.
But it's also a mindset sometimes. When there's trouble in the White House, there is too frequently a passivity. Okay, let's step back and let the State Department handle it. Let's let somebody else handle it, and not jump in and realize the seriousness of the moment.
We're talking about a dead ambassador.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but don't you think this was politically toxic, and they wanted to stay as?
But they should have done that. But time and time again, you can see Obama was out saying, "Hey, look, we have got." Al-Qaeda back on its heels. Well, anyone in the intelligence committee knows, community knows it's not true.
That's where the press is.
So again, what Bob Woodward is saying, well, he's just lying about Al-Qaeda. He's out there saying telling everybody Al-Qaeda's on its heels. We've broken its back. The power's been broken. You know, and Lara Logan, CBS News, saying that's not true. The Al-Qaeda's alive and well. They hate us more than they ever have. And so here Bob Woodward basically accusing Barack Obama of lying about the strength of Al-Qaeda, and he criticizes Obama for his passivity. Let's back off and let the State Department handle it. And again, this is part of a calculated strategy, I believe, on the president's part. If he steps forward and takes action, then he's going to be accountable for what happens. If he steps back, lets the State Department handle it, then if the State Department handles it well and it turns out well, Barack Obama can say, hey, look what my team did. This is fantastic, like taking out bin Laden. I mean, you know, the way Barack Obama talked about you'd think that he was the one that busted into the room and pulled the trigger because my team did this, hooray for me. But if he has the State Department step up and they do well, he can take credit for it because it's under his watch. But if it blows up in everybody's face, then he can blame them for it. And that's what I think he's doing here. That's why he likes being passive. Let somebody else take the initiative anytime there's risk involved, because then he can blame them when things do not work out. And here's Bob Woodward going after Obama about what he told to the UN about this videotape. Let's listen.
What do you make of the fact that 5 days later, Susan Rice goes out and tells this story about a spontaneous protest when we now know the State Department never thought there was a spontaneous protest. In fact, we know, and they were in touch in real time with people on the ground in Benghazi on the 11th.
I don't think we know exactly why she did that or what was going on. But the key, which you pointed out to David Axelrod, is 2 weeks later, the presidents at the UN inciting this YouTube video, I guess half a dozen times, that, as we now know, had virtually nothing to do with what happened in Benghazi.
So Bob Woodward, again, criticizing the president. He's out there at the UN 2 weeks after this thing, blaming the violence a half a dozen times on this movie, and everybody knew within 24 hours, the movie had absolutely nothing to do with it. Well, let's grab some phone calls. You're listening to Focal Point AFR Talk, 888-589-8840. Let's go to John, Columbus, Ohio. John, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Brian, it's good to talk to you. I actually stomached through the speech that Barack Obama gave to the UN.
Uh-huh.
Halfway through it, I was listening to it, and I misunderstood what he said, so I replayed it again. And he actually said, about halfway through it, he said that throughout history that Muslims have been known to be persecuted for their faith and their religion, you know. And I mean, obviously, you know, he's a defender of the Muslim faith, but you know, it bothers me, like I said, because I know they're going to try to silence the truth speakers, the people like you and people that I preach on a small radio station, and I have a tendency to speak my point about Barack Obama and how I feel about the way the nation's heading today. And I asked the people from our area, I'm from Southern Ohio, and I asked them to pray for, you know, our nation. But like I said, you know, one of these days I know it's coming, Brian, that they're going to try to silence us on the truth. Mm-hmm. And and he said there is no future for someone who would blaspheme against the Quran or the Holy Prophet Muhammad. You know what I mean? I mean, he said that. You know what I mean? And it's pretty blatant that these days are coming, and it's written in the Scripture that you'll be persecuted for the Christ.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to go. Like I said, I know that one of these days it's going to happen, and I'm willing to go to jail like Paul. You know, Paul preached from the cells himself. You know what I mean? And if I have to go that far with it, I would. But you just keep up the good work, Brian. Because like I said, you know, there's not a lot of people out there that's willing to tell the truth. I got a phone call from a lady the other day, and she trying to find out if I was the same guy that was preaching on the radio in Southern Ohio, and obviously I was. And she said that when she heard me on the radio, she started shouting and praising God walking through her house because finally someone is starting to preach the truth.
Yeah.
And I've listened to you. I listen to you every day on the way home coming from work, and I'm happy, that, like I said, that you are more than willing to tell the truth. Because, like I said, if you're not going to tell the truth, then the people out there just want to blind you. Like Dr. Dillman, everyone wants to bring it up as a race issue. I would have been more than willing to vote for a black man if he was a Republican and if he was a born again Christian. It has nothing to do with race to me. It has everything to do with a person's morals. And like I said, Barack Obama claims to be a Christian. And Romney is obviously, in my opinion, he's not a Christian, but at the same time, the moral values are different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a moral person, and that's what I'm looking at.
All right, John. Well, listen, I appreciate your call, and thank you. And thank you for what you're doing, speaking the truth down there in Columbus. I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for taking a stand and being bold. And again, we are not anti-Muslim, but I make no bones about the fact that I am anti-Islam. I think Islam and the West are two fundamentally incompatible ideals. They cannot coexist. We're going to have to choose between one or the other. The ideology in Islam is fundamentally at odds with every American value that we cherish. Let's grab a quick call from Seth in Sioux City, Iowa. Bring Seth in, focal point. Brian Fisher, what's on your mind, Seth? Got about 35 seconds.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I have actually been contacted by the same polling company for the past few weeks several different times.
Really? Do you know what the name of the polling company is?
It was something like Independent Polling Agents. I don't know, something.
Now,
did
they get you on your cell phone or a landline?
I actually signed up for a landline for the very first time about a month ago, and it was after that they started
calling you. And did the questions seem even-handed, or did they seem tilted in one way or another?
No, it was pretty even. They just asked for basically whether I was male or female, white or non-white, and then they asked if I was going to, Republican, Independent, Democrat, and then they wanted to know
who you're going to vote for.
Yeah, they asked about the presidential election. They also asked about the local.
All right, Seth. Got to let you go. Up against the break. Focal point, AFR Talk.